Hi again. Our next speaker began working with Steve Jobs in 1989 as a third-party developer for Next. He actually created a database for Next. He was the first and last independent developer at Next. He created Twittelator. He's the founder, director, and principal programmer for Stone.com. Andrew Stone.
Thank you. All right. Our lives are the product of a story, a narrative, or a myth, if you will, that inspires, motivates, and guides our actions. For me, getting involved with computers in the 80s, I resonated with this story. Microsoft and IBM are building a boring Borg-like culture that's top-down and it's empire. But the guys at Apple's, the underdogs, the visionaries, we were going to be building a bright future of personal power and freedom to create a peaceful and sustainable world. Forgot to show him. Anyway, that's the story I signed up for in 1985, and it's had a great run. The story goes that technology will empower us. Technology will liberate us, and soon there will be so much leisure time that our only task is to figure out what to do with it all. Why the future is so bright, we'll have to wear shades. Technology has literally become the religion of our time, and to even question it risks one being labeled as a heretic. You will recognize the garments of the priesthood, the white lab coats, and the business suits. Everything new and better all the time. All a show, really, a story to keep us glued to the future perfect. Believing in a mythical future that is nothing like what is actually unfolding on this planet right now. Today, we're going to look at some of our unexamined assumptions and try to get a better handle on where we are, how we got here, and how we can take more effective control of our collective future. Let's start with this assumption. Technology produces leisure time. Now, I don't know about you, but I have zero leisure time unless I stop coding, stop emailing, stop talking, stop Skyping, stop texting, tweeting, using, and actually consciously plan time off. So, myth number one about the future, infinite leisure time is dead. That joins nuclear energy's myth of electricity too cheap to meter. And that was the mantra we heard in the 50s and 60s that allowed us to build all of those. But we know they're myths now because the future costs of containing, if at all possible, the Fukushima Daiichi disaster may far outstrip the value of the energy produced by those reactors, and maybe even all the reactors in Japan. I can't see very well, sorry. I would have done it like Mike, but every now and again, one must climb the trees of the forest to get an overview of where we are as a nation, a civilization, as a planet of 8 billion souls. And so last year, I took some months off from the break speed neck of software engineering to try and get a more comprehensive understanding. All because of two things that precipitated a huge crisis for me. What happened? Okay, there. The first affected everyone on the planet. Edward Snowden's NSA revelations, which we apparently have not even heard the worst of. Now, can we together take a little that it was Apple that held out until 2012, a full year after Steve had died, before handing over their keys to your iCloud to the NSA. And it's kind of cool from my sense of that myth I believed in about Microsoft and whatnot being the evil empire, that they were quick to hand them over as early as 2007. This slide's from the Washington Post, by the way, from last summer, June 7th. So, as the Snowden revelations have unfolded, I've become sicker and sicker with outrage and a sense of violation. Not only from the NSA, but the corporate partners who have betrayed us. What was your reaction to all of this? Did you just stuff it into the fear pit, the mystery vault, the chamber of horrors, where we put realizations we cannot cope with? The same place we put the news of 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Katrina, BP Horizon, Fukushima, gargantuan failures that have evaded scrutiny because they run counter to the official manufactured narrative. Here we have spent our careers trying to create software to help empower and liberate people. And we find that inadvertently, we've given the military-industrial, entertainment, surveillance state 100% access to all of our innermost thoughts and desires. To wit, as software engineers and technology advocates, we have had a hand in creating one of the most dystopian and inequitable societies imaginable. The machine has turned on democracy, and the current vector does not look good. We have created immense computational juggernauts that are unstoppable by any human at this point, and they exist in finance, surveillance, marketing, and even social engineering. Jaron Lanier, in his book, Who Owns the Future?, calls them siren servers, after Ulysses' encounters with the beautiful sirens that would drive men mad if they heard them sweetly singing. For example, in the financial industry, the flash trading has created a mechanism which is constantly siphoning off capital from the global markets. The bigger the servers and the closer to the long lines building in Manhattan, the faster it can trade. And it's concentrating the global wealth into the fewer and fewer hands. Now, a small fee for each trade could be levied and thus disincentivize flash trading, but nowhere is to be found the political will to push such a fix through. Well, another core assumption we should challenge is the reality of money. Originally, money was simply a medium of exchange. But it is our faith and belief and worship of money that gives it its significance and dominance in our lives, affecting our decisions and creating limitations. Money is simply an abstract construct with inordinate power over us. However, due to the fact that it's abstract, one can reorient one's attitude towards it and its relationship to it to change the power that it has over us as individuals. But to change the entire system will be a different matter. Because the mechanisms that allow 85 people to amass more wealth than the poorest 3.5 billion souls on this planet, these mechanisms are not sustainable. At what point will people realize that the game is so rigged that the only way out is to adopt another currency or barter or I don't know what? With the Supreme Court's Citizens United ruling and the McCutcheon Unlimited campaign finance decision, there is now no limit to how those 85 people can create policies that benefit the few at the expense of the many. And our presumption that the United States is the greatest country in the world, according to Global Rankings report, the U.S. is in 16th place overall, 70th in health, 69th in ecosystem sustainability, 39th in basic education, 34th in access to water and sanitation, 31st in personal safety, and a disappointing 23rd in access to the internet. Here's another assumption. In America, we are free. How free do you feel when you know your phone is bugged, your computer is being watched, and everything you've done on the internet has been carefully gathered into buckets? When you always have to wonder, as you meet someone new in tech, if they might also be employed by the NSA, or the CIA, or the FBI, or the DHS, the DOD, the DEA, the EFF? No, that's actually not a government organization. But a bunch of other security organizations you have yet to hear about. You know, it's creepy, and I'm calling it for what it is. And you might say, oh, I'm a law-abiding citizen. Why should I fear the government or Facebook or advertisers collecting information about me? To that I say, please understand the power of the panopticon. In 1791, the architect and nation-soldier engineer, Jeremy Bentham, figured out a design that applied equally well to prisons, mental hospitals. By placing the inmates in a circular configuration around the one-way mirrored central viewing station, the inmates would never know if they were being watched or not. But the effect is the same. Self-policing takes over when someone feels they are being watched. A democracy relies on open and accurate information to stay strong and healthy. But that's not the trend we are seeing. 90 million documents were made secret in 2011. A tenfold increase over the number made secret in 2001. So you're like, what in gosh name does all this have to do with me being a software engineer? It's us. It's us creating the groovy Candy Crushes and groovy Twitter apps and other mind-numbing and addictive interactions. In the past year, I've been noticing more and more people checked out on their devices, even when they're in a social situation. So, I said there were two that caused the crisis. The second reason is more personal. It's my daughter Emma's. She's 13, and she's a very special person. She has cerebral palsy, which means that in her case, the part of the brain that controls executive function is damaged. So if she thinks something, like, she sees you and doesn't like what you say or whatever, she'll tell you. No filtering. So it's extremely interesting to learn about how the mind operates if you took away the filters, so to speak. But she has become a huge Minecraft fan, a DS player, and what happens when she is, she has to do something else and get off that iPad or DS, she'll have a panic attack, anxiety attack, and it'll be really, really disruptive for the whole family. So here we have worked so hard to create these amazing apps and experiences, and yet we're creating little monsters with massive addictions. There's Emma receiving her first iPhone for her 13th birthday. Yeah, I'm guilty, I know. But please believe me about the addiction, because watch how much time and attention you spend on devices every day. Now, notice how you might ignore those around you as you're jacked in. The science of this addiction I learned from Dr. Barbara Jennings of Sandia National Labs. She gave a TED Talk recently called Cell Phones, Dopamine, and Development, and she explains how we've become information seekers. And the brain releases dopamine when we find something we seek. So on our devices, we're constantly put into a seeking mode with those red dots, looking for texts, tweets, emails, new shinies. Think about how you feel when you get a message versus when you don't. You might feel elated and worthwhile. That's the effect of dopamine on the brain. In Skinnerian psychology, the seeking loop is called the variable ratio schedule. A response is reinforced after an unpredictable number of responses. It's the same mechanism that causes the gambling and lottery addictions. Only now we have an entire society being susceptible to it. Have you ever forgotten your phone and went back to get it no matter how late you were going to be? Turns out there's a name for this medical condition: nomophobia. That's right, the no mobile phone phobia, or the anxiety we feel when we don't have a phone. That's a long way for society to come in 7 years. Grumpy cat time. Instead, we've built the surveillance state, the ultimate surveillance state, and filled it full of mindless candy-crushing zombies. So, now what do? We have been part of creating this, and we must take part in redirecting it. I want to share a vision I had on my birthday this year, but to do that, let's get in the right mental attitude. Last year, during my talk at AltConf, I gave a little talk called DMT, the Next, and the Soul of the Human Machine. I demonstrated a power breathing exercise then, and I suggest we do it again. I'm going to sit down in case I pass out. But basically, we'll just breathe in deeply, exhale deeply, and we'll do it as long as we can, and we'll increase in speed, and then we'll let go of the breath and hold our breath a little until we feel the rush, and then continue to breathe normally. Might as well open the third eye while I'm at it. The cool thing about quantum physics is that whether you understand it or not, it's always in play. It's something here can affect something there. Something then can affect something now. Something in the future might even be able to affect something now. It's the veritable Cheshire cat, the ghost in the machine. And yet it goes a long way to explaining things like synchronicity, synesthesia, telepathy, déjà vu, and remote viewing. On my birthday, I was relaxing and a flash of insight flooded over me. I perceived bright, colorful tubes coming out of my head and body and going out and connecting into other people's bright, colorful tubes coming out of their heads and body. And in that moment, I realized that it was our minds together that make up the ultimate computer. It was alive, and it was greater than the sum of its parts, us. In fact, this gigantic computer has always been booted, and people have been jacking into it for millennia. Meditation, yoga, martial arts, sacred medicines, prayer, dance, running, painting, gardening, volunteering, and music are all tried and true tools of technosis. That is, tools that allow access, that give us access to the numinous on demand. We crack the illusion of separation and isolation and become part of something much more enduring, wondrous, and freeing. The Vedic sages already have a term for this particular vision. It's Indra's net. It reveals the holographic nature of the universe, the interconnectedness of all things, the lack of a substantive self, and the notion of non-locality. As programmers, you'll understand that we are basically patching our brains to be able to increase functionality and the subtler senses, like empathy and compassion. Together, we are the computer, and we are just learning how to operate it. The emergent behavior of expanding human consciousness is unknown by definition, but it seems to have an interesting effect of cracking the manufactured consent of consumerism. We, as individual, encrypted, decentralized nodes, are forming something new and something wondrous. Now, I still believe that computers and technology are great tools, but they have become a golden calf, receiving the misguided worship of the masses. See if you can become conscious of your device usage and if you can reduce it by taking an opportunity to become more present in your physical reality. Inhabit your existence fully. Challenge your pals when you gather socially to put their phones in a pile in the center of the table, with the understanding that the first person to grab it has to pay the tab. So, when it comes to deciding what sorts of projects you want to code, consider what impacts your project may inadvertently have. Use your gut and your heart to help you evaluate propositions. Now is the time when we need to create apps which solve the problems that the apps we've created have caused. A good example would be an app running in the background that can help remind someone when they need to transition off their device. It would help kids get off their devices more easily and would be a guaranteed bestseller among weary parents. Any app that tricks users into actually going outside and interacting with the physical world would be helpful. As well as content creation apps, like Bill Atkinson's amazing photo card. It turns the computer user into a creative and not a mindless consumer. And games that let people think about real-world problems and solutions might be instructive. Tools to register people to vote and participate in democracy are needed. Apps that give abilities to those with disabilities are truly revolutionary. Apps that encourage curiosity, understanding, and revelation are important. Apps that create or distribute work will go a long way to help with the fact that software mediation and automation has been the #1 job destroyer. Now imagine crowdsourced finance solar and wind generation facilities. Now, I want to ship an app right now. Here's a design for it, but I'm shipping. Pencil on paper app. Here's what's cool about it. No passwords, no charging, no saving, and no spying. I've got a few of these to give out in the next talk when we have our roundtable to anyone who has a really good idea or suggestion. Now, it looks like I'm down to 4 minutes, so I'm going to have to give you guys a killer quick demo of Bandojo. So, yeah, I quipped that I got into software because I wanted to be a rock star, but I didn't have any musical talent. So, last year I helped a friend build this app, Bandojo. He's been working on the heuristics of the musical synthesis stuff for about 20 years. But what's cool about it, and let me just kind of break out and start Xcode. I ported it to Swift last night. I hope that's okay. So can you crank this? So you can hear the little background. We've got ourselves, but we can pick different themes depending on our mood. Mine's I had kitchery for lunch, so. What's that? Oh, yes. Can you guys mirror? Okay, I know how to do this. Okay, now what, did my thing come up on that one or what? Huh. Okay. System preferences. Where is it? Displays and arrangement and mirror, and then we're good, and remind me to do it back. Okay. Okay, well, we'll kind of be able to see part of the demo. What do you think? Relaunch and then simulator will be smart again? No? Never mind. Since I got, anyway, let me just tell you this about Bandojo. I'm going to put the distortion guitar on. What? Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, but then, okay, window, scale. Just put it at 50 and we'll be good to go, almost. But anyway, you'll have a lot of fun playing with this. What did I want to say about it? It's got the power drum for my friend Dave Hamilton. But what's cool is that all your friends can whip out their iPhone, join together in a band, and that's what Band Dojo is. And it was just so relaxing. Okay. System preferences now. Display. Now where's the non? Oh, you have to gather the windows. And don't mirror. Go back to Keynote. And we're good to go. So, hey, let's get this thing virally started here, people. Buy it and tell your friends too. This is perfect. So each one of us can plug into the universe, becoming something greater than we were when we conceived of ourselves as separate bags of flesh and bones. A synergy emerges where the sum of the parts is greater than the parts themselves. I submit that we are part of a vast, active, living information system far beyond what our physical computers are currently capable of. Person by person, node by node, the people of this planet are hooking into the intranet and understanding the interrelationship of all that moves upon this beautiful blue marble. So I believe it's a race of whether we awaken as a fully conscious species that can live sustainably in harmony with each other and nature, or whether we continue full speed into self-destruction through our overconsumption and greed. Which wolf pup will we feed? Never doubt for a moment that your individual choices can make a huge difference to the people around you, and as you know, that includes everyone on the planet now. Time to tune in, turn on, and play together. Thank you. I just want to say one thing. I'm posting this to Stone/WTF in about 30 seconds when I get my SSH up. Thank you. Are we going to segue right now to the thingy?
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick... We're panel.
To keep us glued to the future perfect. Believing in a mythical future that is nothing like what is actually unfolding on this planet right now. Today, we're going to look at some of our unexamined assumptions and try to get a better handle on where we are, how we got here, and how we can take more effective control of our collective future. Let's start with this assumption. Technology produces leisure time. Now, I don't know about you, but I have zero leisure time unless I stop coding, stop emailing, stop talking, stop Skyping, stop texting, tweeting, using, and actually consciously plan time off. So, myth number one about the future, infinite leisure time is dead. That joins nuclear energy freedom to create a peaceful and sustainable world. Forgot to show him. Anyway, that's the story I signed up for in 1985, and it's had a great run. The story goes that technology will empower us. Technology will liberate us, and soon, there will be so much leisure time that our only task is to figure out what to do with it all. Why the future is so bright, we'll have to wear shades. Technology has literally become the religion of our time. And to even question it risks one being labeled as a heretic. You will recognize the garments of the priesthood, the white lab coats, and the business suits. Everything new and better all the time. All a show, really, a story.
Hi again. Our next speaker began working with Steve Jobs in 1989 as a third-party developer for Next. He actually
Energy's myth of electricity too cheap to meter. And that was the mantra we heard in the 50s and 60s that allowed us to build all of those. But we know they're myths now because the future costs of containing, if at all possible, the Fukushima Daiichi disaster may far outstrip the value of the energy produced by those reactors, and maybe even all the reactors in Japan. I can't see very well, sorry. I would have done it like Mike, but every now and again, one must climb the trees of the forest to get an overview of where we are as a nation, a civilization, as a planet of 8 billion souls. And so last year, I took some months off from the break speed neck of software engineering to try and get a more comprehensive understanding.
created a database for Next. He was the first and last independent developer at Next. He created Twittelator. He's the founder, director, and principal programmer for Stone.com, Andrew Stone.
Thank you. All right. Our lives are the product of a story, a narrative, or a myth, if you will, that inspires, motivates, and guides our actions. For me, getting involved with computers in the 80s, I resonated with this story. Microsoft and IBM are building a boring Borg-like culture that's top-down and it's empire. But the guys at Apple's, the underdogs, the visionaries, we were going to be building a bright future of personal power and freedom.